Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. We are on episode 106 on this cold, frigid Saturday, November morning.
Yes.
And we started it with a walk.
Yes, perfect.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, I love walking in the cold.
Yeah, I don't. We've beaten the dead horse a million times at this juncture with it, but the cold is beneficial. And during our walk, we talked, and I brought it up, that it seems like there's an overwhelming amount of evidence, obviously, and it's being pushed by people that I think are, I don't want to say fitness influencers, because there's a lot of nuance there. Like, some fitness influencers aren't obviously putting out the greatest content or information. Maybe they're just perhaps the most marketable. But it seems like the people that I truly trust in the industry of health, wellness, performance, some of those elite level guys and girls that are putting out this information tend to all be highly, highly in favor of some type of cold exposure.
Yeah.
Ice baths, walking outside in the cold, cold showers. There's a multitude of things that you could do to have prolonged cold exposure.
Right.
But it's really, really beneficial for a myriad of things. We've talked about a lot of them before. So me being someone who is comfortable in the warmth, tries to avoid it, but now I'm making a conscientious effort to try to get cold. For example, when we got here for our walk this morning, I was a little bit warm already because I had already lifted and trained. So I was getting out of my vehicle and took my coat off. It's 30 degrees, probably, maybe a little bit warmer.
28.
28? Oh, even colder. So 28 degrees right now, and I took off my coat because I wanted to try to be as cold as possible.
Right.
Which is good for me. So.
Yeah, and you know, and I don't talk about the cold as much as because you look into it and you're like seeking it out. But it always seems to come up for me. I like the cold, I think, for a different reason. I like the discomfort.
Yeah.
Because it's really easy to come out here to this exact track and get out with a group of people and walk for an hour when it's 65 or 70 degrees out.
Well, I don't want to be cliche about it, but people have to really be cognizant of the fact that cold exposure, not just cold exposure, anything that gives some type of uncomfortable feeling is probably going to elicit a positive physiological or biological response.
Yep.
For example, most of the foods right now that you don't like, if you don't like them, you probably should be eating them because your palate has been sensitized to other things that it shouldn't eat. Processed foods, sugary foods, whatever. Same thing with the cold. Like, it all goes back to a biological evolutionary perspective. Like, your ancestors were hunting in the cold, wearing skin and fur to keep warm. So your bodies were designed to be exposed to it.
Right.
We, however, have gotten to the point where we're aiming at comfort. And again, we talk about this all the time on the podcast of more as like a cliche motivational type spiel about, you have to get uncomfortable or you have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable and you have to push yourself. But talking specifically about discomfort on the foundational biological level is important too.
I agree 100% because you have to. I don't like to say you have to because that's kind of rude. But in my opinion, I have to get myself into a physically uncomfortable situation, and then I start to see the good in it.
Well, and then you biologically you get to the point where what's happening is you're noticing that the uncomfortable becomes comfortable, and the comfortable becomes uncomfortable.
Uh-huh.
A great example would be shoes. So everybody looks for the most comfortable shoes, and oftentimes you find that the most comfortable shoes are probably the worst for you from an anatomical and movement and functionality perspective. Yeah. So I went barefoot. Being barefoot is extremely difficult. It's hard on the bottom of your feet. Even from a structural standpoint, like lifting in bare feet feels weird. Not just sensation from the nervous system as far as input goes, like feeling the ground on your bare feet, because I would always wear shoes or socks.
Yeah.
But just also squatting mechanically feels different in bare feet when you're used to some elevation there, specifically from the heels and stuff. Well, now that I've been barefoot for so long, if I put shoes on for any amount of time, my feet will ache.
Yeah.
Because my toes are squished together because the shape of my foot has transformed to a splayed toe where my feet are much wider now. Again, how they should be design-wise. Now that those comfortable things of like comfortable shoes are now very, very uncomfortable for me, so I try to avoid them all the time.
Right.
So I have some rare exceptions. Like I have a pair of Vivo barefoot shoes that I wear for instances where I have to wear shoes. I have a couple barefoot minimalist type shoes. I have like Vivo barefoot, which I wear to school with my dress clothes. I have a pair of New Balance Minimus, which have like a Vibram sole. They're very wide toed, so very comparable to the Vivo barefoot. Very, very lightweight, highly pliable.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that the more, and same thing with nutrition.
I was getting ready to touch on that.
When you eat healthy food that is uncomfortable at first, then that's all you want and all you crave. Like the analogy that I always use is a McDonald's reference. So after I go through a contest prep, if I'm allowed to have a cheat meal or even after the show, I'll eat McDonald's and I will feel completely awful. Don't worry, no one's dying. That's just the car beeping at us. We're in Studio D at this point.
Yeah.
So for me, when I have McDonald's or something that my body hasn't been exposed to, which normally people like McDonald's, it tastes good, it gives them a feeling of comfort. It makes me feel horrible.
Right.
My stomach, like I feel like I want to vomit. And again, those comfort tools become uncomfortable once you switch to what you should be doing.
Right.
So you find that in a lot of avenues. Just like, I mean, footwear and nutrition were just the two we mentioned, but it's a lot of things. I'm sure it's the way with cold. Like if I was able to get my body to adapt to cold, at least to a decent degree, no pun intended.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't have all these issues like feeling like I'm going to die in the cold shower and shivering outside my car trying to get in it in the morning.
And that's the thing is I'm not adapted to the cold either. I enjoy training in the cold. Or not training in the cold. I lied. I like walking outside in the cold. Like
I think you could say that's training.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, when we talk about training, most of the time we mean in the gym. But like when I do my cardio, I enjoy it the most when it's wintertime and freezing cold and nobody else is there because I don't know, it's almost like a win, a psychological win. Because like who else is out here doing this in the snow and the ice and in these sub-zero temperatures and stuff. Like that is why I like the cold so much.
Mm-hmm.
But like training wise, I like to train in the heat. So it's different.
And I think that you could probably, so when they talk about diets, and I'm kind of getting a little bit high level here that's even above my area of expertise, so I don't want to speak like I know these things when I don't. But when you talk about nutrition, there's a lot of increasing evidence that supports that someone's diet, as far as what's optimal, like what would be best for you, what would be best for me, would be on nationality and heritage. So like where your ancestors were from. Yeah, what type of foods they ate, like a Mediterranean diet, or like some areas which are super, like some cold areas which are super high in fats, saturated and unsaturated fats. If you are a descendant of those types of people, your body's probably designed to function off of that a little bit better. So there's different like nuance that goes there. And I wonder if like cold exposure is the same way, if it's more beneficial to people who come from colder areas versus somebody in parts of Africa where they don't get much cold exposure. Right. Maybe it would be more beneficial to them because their body hasn't experienced it, or maybe there's like not really a necessity for that cold exposure just because they've never really experienced it from like a genetic standpoint. I don't really know.
That's a question though. Like, that's a question I'd like to know the answer to.
It could also possibly be super over analytical on my part.
Yeah.
I'm just like overthinking it and it has nothing to do with it. But I don't know. It's something worth pondering, I guess, because you see that again with the nutrition side of things that there's research that shows that people do better off of foods that their ancestors ate, as far as like type of diet goes.
I've seen and heard that theory a lot recently, and it's something else that I'm like now because I've always been the one that didn't want to do the ancestry thing or the DNA testing to find out your family tree and all the things. I've never really been interested in that. But now it's got me intrigued, and I'm like, well, maybe I should do the 23andMe or whatever.
Well, there's so many cool things that they do with that. Like they do what's called telomere length testing. Are you familiar with that at all? So, again, speaking at a level that's pretty far above where I'm currently at in my knowledge base. So if I say something wrong, I'm sure that there are listeners that could probably correct me. But there's I don't know if it's part of the chromosome, but I think it is part of the chromosome. It's called telomeres. And what they are is they have a certain length to them, and it's indicative of biological age versus chronological age. So what they can do is they can do this genetic testing where they see how the length of your telomeres,
Like the length of your family's timeline.
it's essentially your timeline.
Oh, okay.
So what they'll do is they'll look at the length of your telomeres, and I believe the younger you are from a biological perspective, the longer they are. So if someone has like rampant drug use and abuse and chronic alcoholism, and they're very high stress environment, horrific diet with processed foods, and they're doing all these things that are quite literally killing themselves, their telomere lengths shrink. And again, that's indicative of, for all intents and purposes, like I don't know if it's like telling you how predisposed to pathology you are or not, but like basically you're going to live longer if those are longer. So people, like if someone's 30 and they get their telomere length measured, they could be 24 which is good because you're 30 years old, but your telomere length, it says that you're 20, you have the telomeres of a 24-year-old. Or if you're 30, you could have them as a 50.
Yeah, and that's probably
50-year-old.
That's probably where I am from everything that I've done.
And I know someone who I've worked with in the past, Ben Pekulski, is a professional bodybuilder who now has his own podcast and several different business endeavors. He's extremely, extremely successful and extremely, extremely knowledgeable. We've mentioned him on the podcast before. Ben has gotten, I believe it was Ben that had gotten his telomere length read and said that it was higher than he had wanted it, and actually over the course of a specific time frame, I don't know if it was months, years, whatever, he was able to bring it down and lengthen it. So he was actually like making himself biologically younger by implementing a lot of anti-aging techniques.
So he lengthened his telomeres, or they stayed the same? So
again, this is where I'm talking above my pay grade, so to speak. So I don't really know. I'm gonna actually look up while we're talking, just for our listeners. I'm going to look up telomere real quick, just so I have like a working definition. It says the telomere is the end of a chromosome, which is what I thought. So basically like a chromosome is that X-shaped looking thing. And as the aging process goes, the telomeres start to shorten.
Nice.
So I don't know I think, if I could be wrong, but I think I recall them saying you could lengthen the telomeres. Not just stop them from shrinking, but you could actually add length to them. I'm not sure, and I don't want to say that because I could be way off. In fact, I'll just consult Dr. Google real quick with a quick search while we're speaking about it, just so I can get, can you lengthen telomeres? A small pilot study shows for the first time that changes in diet, exercise, stress management, and social support may result in longer telomeres, the parts of chromosomes that affect aging.
Huh.
And then I just saw another little excerpt. Research shows that those with higher levels of antioxidants, such as vitamin C, E, and selenium, tend to have longer telomeres. Fruits and vegetables are the best source of antioxidants, which is why a plant-based diet is highly recommended. Every time a cell divides, the telomeres shorten, eventually reaching a critical length where they can no longer divide and will die.
Huh.
By lengthening a telomere by 1,000 nucleotides, the Stanford researchers were able to add many years to live of cells that underwent their process. So it does sound like you can lengthen them.
It sounds like you know that what we've been talking about all along means something. Good diet and exercise, and managing your stress, managing your time, and living your best life. Literally.
Was that a Liver King reference? Living your best life?
Yeah.
So that's one thing that he says. We talked about Liver King last year. And actually...
We talked about him all morning on the track.
I don't want to get off topic, but I'm actually going to pick up some liver later on today.
Yeah.
I have a pretty much loaded schedule. You know me, my schedule's always loaded, and the weekends are a little bit more chaotic. Not because they're more loaded, but they're more all over the place.
Yeah.
Like during the week, I'm at school. I'm at gym in the morning, at school in the morning and all day, and then at the gym in the evening. So it's gym, school, gym, and that's what it is.
Yeah.
Whereas on the weekends, equally as loaded, but going from place to place. So after this, I got to scoot back over to the gym real quick and train 2 athletes. And then after that, before I go to Pittsburgh to meet up with Dr. Ryan, we're going to do some filming, and I'm going to get like a chiropractic adjustment. I'm going to go to what's called Lamppost Farms, which is, I don't know if they're all organic, but they're free range animals, and they sell a lot of unique meats. Nothing completely out of the ordinary, but they have liver and hearts and tongue and stuff. And I'm going to pick up some liver
Nice.
today, so I'm
Nice.
pretty excited about that. The unfortunate thing is, when I was looking at their website, 'cause I've never been there, they're only open on Saturdays.
Oh.
So I only have a small window of time.
Yeah.
And my Saturdays, like every day
busy.
again, are busy. So I have to make sure that when a Saturday comes, I'm going to try to get in there and grab some. So I'll let you know how that goes.
Yeah, excited.
I've never eaten raw liver before.
Are you gonna eat it raw?
I'm going to, yeah. And truth be told, I don't even know if I've ever had liver, because I've been a pretty big proponent of organ meats and their health benefits. Like I've had tongue before, I've had heart before, but I don't know that I've ever had liver, which is kind of crazy because that's like the one meat that's the most not most important, but that's usually the foundation of where people start.
Yeah.
Like when you go to the gym, the first thing you do is the bench press.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a reference there, but I don't know.
To me, the liver is like a controversial organ meat too, though, because you always hear that livers are not good for you from people that have no idea.
Yeah, I would listen to this video on YouTube by this one doctor who was dispelling the liver myths about eating too much liver, because there's a lot of myths that you hear out there that are just untrue.
Yeah.
One of the ones that I've discussed before is vitamin A levels. So liver is extremely high in vitamin A, and there could be, since it is fat soluble, which means that it gets stored in fat, and then does not get flushed out with fluids when you urinate, like water soluble vitamins tend to do. You are at risk of potentially storing too much of it, where there's like a vitamin A overabundance, which could lead to some toxicity symptoms, which I'm not sure what they are. I've never been toxic for vitamin A, so I can't tell you. He cited some research that shows that there has never apparently been someone who has been hyper, whatever the term is for where your vitamin A level's too high. No one has ever been to that point with eating normal livers. So beef liver, turkey liver, whatever. I think he mentioned some instances where the livers are extremely, extremely high in vitamin A, like certain animals, but they were very exotic and probably wouldn't have access to them anyway. Right. Maybe like some fish, some different types of fish livers that he was talking about. Again, I hate saying stuff on the podcast that I don't really know a lot about, but it was just worth mentioning that, like, one of the big concerns with eating liver is the vitamin A toxicity, and this doctor seemed to think that that was not a concern worth considering at all.
Liver. I eat liver. I wouldn't call it regular, but I don't eat it raw. So
yeah.
I'm not there yet.
What I have to figure out, I got to figure out if there's a workup period, because I know that if you start eating raw meats, that it could be bad news from you from a GI perspective or a digestion perspective. So I'm not really sure, but like I would have to think that there are certain meats that are a little bit safer to eat raw. Just going anecdotally off of what Liver King does, he eats a lot of things raw, like eggs he eats raw, which shouldn't be too much an issue as long as the shell does not get in, because it's my understanding that salmonella and different types of food poisoning are on the shell. And when you crack them, if the shell gets into the egg, that's where you could run into some issues. But he eats those raw. He eats his organ meats raw, like his liver. But his ground beef and stuff, he cooks. So I'm not exactly sure if there's like a chart that says which ones you could eat and should eat raw and which ones you should cook. But
I heard something about the ground meat, not eating ground meat raw, just because you didn't grind it and you don't know exactly what is in it.
So it could be like cross-contamination type deal. Yeah.
So I don't know. And like I said, like you said earlier, I don't like speaking too much on things I don't know about, and I don't know enough about that. Like, just like I've never had I eat raw fish.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a sushi guy.
Yeah.
Like, I like raw fish.
Oh, I love sushi, man.
Raw meat, like red meat and poultry, I'm not to say that I'm against it.
Yeah.
I just haven't done it yet. Like,
and
I need to know somebody who does it. You know what I mean? Like once Charlie's good and does it,
yeah,
I'll probably try it with you.
I could be the guinea pig and see.
Not that you're my guinea pig, but I know that you're not going to do something that's going to be detrimental to your health.
Yeah, I try not to be reckless with some decisions like that.
So, if you're doing it and it's working and you enjoy it and it's giving you benefits.
Yeah.
Sure. I'll give it a nibble.
Yeah.
Like, I'll try it.
And I'm not opposed. Stuff like that never really grossed me out. Like, we've talked before about how Liver King does. He does like testicles and stuff, and some very that really never. That's something that never really grossed me out. Is eating organs or anything like that. I'm not really sure why. It's just it's never been a weird thing for me. I don't know.
I've always ate deer hearts.
Yeah, and see, that's actually the first, probably to the best of my memory. My buddy used to hunt in college, and he would get deer hearts, and he would pickle them, and the pickle tastes kind of gross.
Good, yeah.
But I ate deer heart a lot. Not a lot, but several times.
Yeah.
Numerous times. And it was kind of weird. A little bit chewy from my experience. I don't know if I told you this, but I had bear for the first time not too long ago.
I want to try bear so bad.
I enjoyed it. One of the little girls that I trained, she is in 5th grade. And I believe it was her father, went on a bear hunt and got a bear and made some jerky, and I tried some of it, and I really liked it. I thought it was good. Now, I'm sure there's like preparation tactics, so like I'm not going to try it one time and say that bear was amazing just because I liked it.
Right.
Because maybe he just is very, very good at preparing it. Maybe if you get it elsewhere, it's not going to taste as good.
Yeah.
But the bear that I had that one time was better than normal jerky.
Yeah.
It was very, very good. I liked it.
Makes me want to try it even more.
Yeah. So speaking of trying things that are good, let's go to a commercial break, and then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about our training updates and kind of go from there. So let's take a quick commercial, and we'll talk more when we come back. As listeners of the Chasing Dreams podcast, we know that you demand the highest quality at all times. If you're interested in quality, look no further than Beast Mode Baking. Beast Mode Baking aims to bring the highest quality, creative, and of course delicious baked goods to your home with nationwide shipping. All orders need to be pre-ordered to ensure they're packed fresh and shipped out to you as soon as possible. Beast Mode Baking offers a flat rate of $15 for shipping due to the size and weight of the cookies and doughs. So if you're interested in Beast Mode Baking, please contact CEO Shannon Knorr. That's at SKNORR13 on Instagram, and order your delicious baked goods today, because every time you support them, you're supporting the podcast as well. And we are back from our commercial break. All right, prior to the break, we were talking about eating testicles and all kinds of weird stuff. So let's just talk kind of like life updates, I guess. We kind of go through this process for people that are new to the show, where Justin and I kind of update you. Not that our lives are that interesting, nor do people care, but it's a nice kind of exchange for you and I, because really, a lot of times on this podcast, you and I are so busy throughout the week that we don't get many opportunities to talk.
Right.
So this is more of a friendship conversation sometimes. Hey, how are things on your end? How are things on my end? So what's new in your life, especially from a training perspective?
Got some new equipment for the garage.
That's right. We talked about that briefly, you and I. You got a lat pull down?
Lat pull down, and it's got so it's a cable-driven machine. It's all cables, and it's not plate-loaded. So it's the only piece in my gym that's not plate-loaded.
Do you agree with me when I say that back is generally the most difficult body part to train with only free weights?
Yes. Absolutely.
I think for several reasons. Number one is it's the most complex. So there's so much that goes into the back training.
Yep.
If people really want to target like traps, rear delts, lats, erectors, and then you have little tiny body parts in the rhomboids and teres, major and minor, and all these little items that go into back training. And the other reason I think that it's so difficult for people to train is because most people, the most difficult body part for them to feel is their back.
Yeah.
So you can come up with some exercise. I mean, any type of curl variation, you're going to feel it in your bicep.
Right.
Any type of pressing or fly from a horizontal position, you're probably going to feel it in your chest.
Right.
Same thing with shoulders. Same thing with legs. Back, because it is so complex, and you get a lot of bicep engagement, and it's movement at the shoulders, movement at the elbow. It tends to be something that's very, very difficult for people to feel. So when you use free weights, that's why people think that some people like machines better, because they get more of a sensation and they feel more activation.
Because they can target certain, because a lot of the machines will make you stay into the good form.
Yeah.
So it helps you target that muscle.
They're ergonomically designed to keep you in the position that you're designed to be in. to target those muscles. So have you used it yet?
Yes, I did. I actually used it for chest day this week and a brief back workout.
Now, what'd you do with chest on it?
So this is a pretty unique little machine. It's not like it's a Marcy, which is like the garage gym brand because they're cheaper. But it's got a lat pull down and it's got 180 pounds on a weight stack. So it's got the lat pull down. It's got you could do seated rows.
Yeah,
like on the ground.
So like just a seated cable
like a low row. Yeah. But it's also got butterflies or chest, a pec deck of some sorts. It's not like the best pec deck in the world, but it gets it done. Also, that pec deck you can do a seated like a seated chest press.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen those ones before.
And what I did is I did like a seated variation of like a Viking press. So like I pressed it out and then I leaned forward and did my presses leaning forward, so my body was at like I don't know what angle that would be.
Now, our listeners obviously can't see this, but I can see how you're showing to me. Did you get a lot of core activation from it?
Yes, a ton of core. So I took the curl, the preacher curl attachment off the front of it, so I could really lean out as far as I could and get that long extension. And I'm telling you what, dude, that was one of the best like shoulder and tricep work. I didn't get a whole lot of chest because of the angle, of the angle. But I did other stuff, with free weights. But I wanted to get creative with the machine to see what all it would do, because that's the biggest thing is with the minimal spaces. I don't have a whole lot of space to do everything I want to do, so I want to have everything I want to have. So like things that I've been doing recently in my gym is like trying to find out different exercises you can do with what I have.
Yeah,
I just did some research and I'm going to try to use the Smith machine to do leg press.
So like a vertical leg press.
Yeah.
I've seen people do that before. I've never tried it myself. I think that it would be very, what's the word I'm looking for? It would be very treacherous to try to maneuver around just because there's probably a pretty low margin for error.
Yeah.
Without dropping it. But I know some people that do it and absolutely love it.
Yeah.
So it's definitely worth a try.
I'm going to set my pins up. I'm going to do it like a high, like a small range of motion first.
Just to, make sure you can balance it on the feet.
Yep.
Or whatever.
Yep. And I'll probably use shoes, I think.
I think you would have to at first, mainly because the grip of turning the Smith machine closed and latching it.
Well, what I think is I won't do that. I won't close it because
you'll just leave it open and put it on the pins. Okay, yep. Makes sense.
Leave it open, put it on the pins, and I'm gonna give it a shot because, like, right now I'm dealing with a chiropractic issue that's limiting, like, my deadlift and my squat.
Yeah.
So like in my gym, I'm struggling on back and leg day to figure things out that I can do. So they're not like debilitating where I can't work out, but I'm struggling getting good numbers on the squat and the deadlift, and when that's the focus of that day, it takes a lot away from me. So I'm just trying to figure out different things to do to stay busy and keep the trend being my friend.
Yep. I have two updates on my end. The first update is I just started yesterday. Actually, today was day 2. I started a 5-3-1 variation. So for those that aren't familiar, 5-3-1 is a training program designed by Jim Wendler, who used to train out of Westside Barbell, elite level powerlifter, and then he is one of the foundational core members of Elite FTS, which is a powerlifting gym out in Columbus, and they sell powerlifting equipment like squat racks, bands, pretty much everything. They have a ton of great content so if you guys are interested in learning how to get stronger, definitely check out Elite FTS. They're awesome. Dave Tate is the owner and founder of that, I believe. Is his title, but he's kind of the spearhead behind everything.
Yeah.
And Dave Tate was a former West Side guy too.
And anything that comes out of Westside Barbell
is quality.
It's quality.
Yeah. So Jim has this 5-3-1 program, and Jim's real basic, and it's awesome because he does like a really good job of breaking things down at a foundational level. Jim, for example, works he's at London High School, And he does all their, which is out by Columbus. He does all their in London, Ohio. He does all their strength programming for their high school. So what he does is he's really, really knowledgeable at breaking things down because he works with 14, 15, 16-year-old athletes. Mm-hmm. So here's a guy that trains the world's greatest powerlifters and also works with kids that he said are super uncoordinated and can't tie their shoes.
Yeah.
So he does a really good job at breaking things down. But anyways, this 5-3-1 program, which is probably the most well-renowned strength development program ever. Like, he does a very good job of marketing it. It's very, very simple. It's percentage-based, so what you do is you test your 1-rep max in 4 main movements. So overhead press, horizontal press, deadlift, and squat. And the overhead press variation that I did was just a standing military press. So no leg drive, all the way down to the chest and press up overhead. So I got this app that logs your 5-3-1. It tells you all your warm-ups, all your working sets, and then it finishes with an AMRAP set, like as many reps as possible with a particular weight at a certain percentage.
Okay.
So this does my overhead press, my bench, my squat, and my deadlift. And I'm using it to get as strong as I can at those 4 movements and log my weights every week. Now, the app also comes with accessory work, but I'm not doing the accessory work. I'm doing my accessory work that I know works for me and that I want to do for my body. So it's not like I'm following the plan perfect. I'm just following the plan for the 4 core exercises, and I'm going to log them and see where I'm at after. So you do it it's 4-week cycles. So what you do is you test your maxes, and then your working sets and your warm-ups change from week to week, but they're based off of your maxes at the beginning and your performance. So what they'll do is at the end of like today, like I had to do an AMRAP set on deadlift. So as many reps as I could with a particular weight. Based on the many reps I got, that changes my working weight for the next week. So it's kind of like self-scaffolding. It changes as you go.
I like
so that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do this for 4 weeks, which isn't a long time. I mean, 4 weeks, that's 1 training or 4 training sessions of each.
Yeah.
So only press overhead 4 times, bench 4 times, squat 4 times, deadlift 4 times. And then what I'll do is I'll retest and then continue the cycle. The difference I wanted to point out, just for reference purposes, I'm not doing normal flat bench. I'm doing close grip.
Okay.
So I like close grip bench a little bit better.
There's more tricep in it.
Yeah, there's a little bit more. It's a little bit more, I don't want to say functional, but anatomically speaking, it feels a lot better for me. I tend to have some like pec tweaks when I go on a normal flat bench. So doing a close grip kind of mitigates that. So that's what I'm doing.
That's kind of ironic because I have been doing a wider grip on the bench.
Feel better that way?
Yeah, it does. And less bar travel.
Yeah.
Because I kind of have long arms and it's like where I've always done more of a close. And I had this past week actually did some wide work and I liked it.
So that's where I'm at with that. The other training update that I wanted to say was I've been trying like heck to be we always talk about being basic and minimalistic and going back to the basics. Well, one thing that I've been doing is my training partner, Chad, and I, we always make jokes about the Liver King. Not joking as in poking fun of him, but joking as in how we need to be more like him.
Yeah.
And we always talk about like ancestral living and, you know, we're doing floor presses, heavy floor presses the other day. And he was screaming at me, telling me I was getting attacked by a tiger and I had to push the tiger off me. Or like a saber-toothed tiger was attacking the caveman. I had to press him off. And every time we do like loaded carries, he always talks about taking the caribou back to the village so the village and the tribe can eat. So we do like all these funny things and relate it back to like biologically, like the ancestors and doing things. Well, I've tried like heck to eliminate all variables that are man-made. Now, obviously, when you're strength training, like the cavemen didn't have barbells and dumbbells, so I'm not just lifting rocks around because it's not optimal for strength training. But one thing we started doing is like, for example, the other day, yesterday we were doing some dumbbell presses after our overhead press, and someone said, well, let's do seated presses. And I made a joke and said, no, our ancestors didn't have benches. We're going on the floor. So we did what's called a Z press, which you and I did the Z pin presses at your house where the legs are extended. You're sitting on your butt and your legs are straight out, maybe open a little bit so your legs are kind of in a V, but you're just sitting in your butt pressing overhead. And it's very hard. Difficult because your core and lower back are stabilizing like heck. You have to have a ton of shoulder mobility to stay upright and press overhead into a comfortable loaded position So Z presses, if you guys aren't familiar with Z presses, look them up. They are awesome, and
Yeah.
they are brutally difficult and very,
Very.
very humbling with the
Yes.
weight you can use.
Yeah, because I was like, I was feeling really good before that workout about my shoulder press, and then we did it, and I was like, check. Okay,
Yeah.
I got some work to do.
Well, it pinpoints weaknesses. It
Yeah,
pinpoints weaknesses
absolutely.
in core, weaknesses in lower back, weaknesses in overhead mobility and
Yep.
shoulder mobilization. So, like today, same type of deal. We're doing a back training, back set or a pull session. So a lot of it was back focused. We really didn't do much bicep or much hamstring work. So we did our deadlift. Just to explain the workout, we did our deadlifts with our progressions and our strength numbers to try to hit, our warm up. Again, everything's percentage based, so the app tells you exactly what to hit. After our deadlifts, we went on to some pull overs to really activate the lats and feel the back, so to speak. And then we did a pull down variation, and then we did 500 pull ups between us. So we just cycled through, and we did 500 pull ups total, and then we were done. So very basic. Well, during the workout, I went to sit down, and I was like, nope, ancestors didn't have bench. I have to squat. So now, like during my workouts, I'm trying to just go into a full squat position, like our bodies, anatomically speaking, were meant to do, and not get into the point where I'm sitting down because, again, benches are man-made, and we weren't designed to go in. We weren't designed to go into 90 degrees of hip flexion, 90 degrees of knee flexion, like you're sitting and stay there for long periods of time.
Right.
In fact, we really weren't meant to go there at all. We were meant to go beyond there to a full squat and sit. Yesterday, for example, I was at my yesterday afternoon. I was at my brother's house, and I spent like the entire day playing with he's like, I think 15 months maybe old, so it's just over a year and a couple months old nephew.
Yeah.
Watching his squat, because he squats all the time and he moves all the time. It's amazing how babies do things perfectly.
Ancestral.
Yeah, dude, feet in a perfectly hip width neutral position, knees abducted, squats all the way down, back perfectly straight. I mean, like a textbook squat, like all babies can do. And then over time, we don't do it enough, and we work ourselves out of it. So it was pretty cool. But yeah, that's one of the funny things that it seems like we laugh about it and joke, like the ancestors didn't have benches, you can't sit down.
Yeah.
But there is part of it that is deeply serious and beneficial.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's what I've been trying to do is
really cool.
Not do man-made stuff in a sense.
Yeah. So, and you brought something up that, I forgot to add into my life update. Huge milestone for Sutton, my daughter.
Uh-huh.
She's not, I wouldn't consider her walking, but she is doing the thing where people cruising along the furniture a lot. So last night we sat on the floor with her and had her walking between us.
Now, for context, how old is she now?
She is 9 months.
Okay, so getting to the point where walking is going to start relatively soon.
And
because doesn't that generally start 10, 11, 12 months maybe?
Yeah, right around the year mark, 10 months to a year, they usually start their trying real hard. So we sat down on the floor with her last night and had her trying to walk between us. And what sparked it is I was sitting. We have a love seat that reclines on both sides.
Yeah.
My mom was on one, and I was on another one. I was sitting there, and she was playing up on the one, and spanned the gap between the two, like walked.
Yeah.
She walked, and I was like, I don't know if anybody else seen that, but she just walked, and they were all like, yeah. So we got on the floor with her, and she walked between me and my wife 2 or 3 steps a couple different times. She's not there where she can do it just willy-nilly, just get up and start walking, but she's really close, so that was really exciting.
Awesome.
And she's starting to talk.
Now, I'm not at the point, I've never had a baby, so I don't, again, like we've said several times, don't want to speak out of turn here in a sense. Yeah. But aren't there downfalls to babies walking too early? I've heard that from some motor pattern development that crawling is obviously extremely important to like the cross pattern development of knee moving with opposite arm as you're crawling, and that quadruped motion is very, very important to fully establish and solidify prior to going biped where you're on 2 legs and walking. And I've actually heard that some parents who try to like not force their kid, but really try to like make their kid walk too soon is actually doing the opposite, and it's like hindrance to their movement patterns.
I heard the same things a few different times, a few different locations on the interwebs, and whenever I was, when we found out we were having a baby, I had made a decision that I wasn't going to force anything. I just kind of want to be and watch it happen, like, and be part of it instead of being like that driving force. You need to talk, you need to crawl, you need to walk, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to experience everything. So, like, when she started crawling, now I just put her down. Like, if I'm going to take her from room to room, I just put her down and she follows me from room to room.
Uh-huh.
Because I think that there is a reason that we crawl before we can walk and we walk before we can run. Like, evolutionarily speaking, there has to be a reason that's the point. You know what I mean? Otherwise, the kids would come out walking.
Yeah.
Or that would be their first step.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, I don't want to rush anything.
Yeah, and I think that's the best mentality to have, because that's kind of a microcosm of life, is sometimes when you push kids too hard to develop too fast, you generally run into problems.
Yeah.
Whether it's psychological burnout of a kid doing too much too soon or getting pushed too hard. But you also can't be too lackadaisical and not try to instill some pushing and motivation and hard work in your kid, for sure. It's got to be a fine line to balance, but you seem like you're doing a great job with it, obviously. So congrats on the
I'm trying
on the walking milestone. That's pretty cool.
Pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
Is there like any amount of stress that comes with development happening too fast? Not in the sense of like what is appropriate, but too fast in the sense of like, oh my gosh, she's getting so big, she's already doing this. Like, you want time to like slow down.
Yeah, I want it to stop.
Yeah.
Like, just stop. I want time to stop in general, because like I was looking at pictures, and man, she was like 6 pounds.
Uh-huh.
Like, she was like tiny, and now she's like a toddler. And it was like in a blink of an eye, and it was crazy. But
you could definitely look back and think like, for your own self too.
Yeah.
Like, I want time to stop, not only for my loved ones, but for me, because I got stuff I got to do and things that I want to accomplish, and time goes quickly. Like, my just turned 32 a couple weeks ago, and it's like, it felt like, again, cliche here, but it just felt like I was 30 a couple days ago.
Yeah.
I just turned 30. Now it's 32.
Yep.
And then it'll be 34, and then 36, 38. And it's very, 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 very crazy for me, because all these like 10-year milestones are pretty, like, I remember turning 10 and thinking, whoa, I'm 10, I'm double digits. And then 20 was like, okay, I'm past adulthood now. Because like then when at 30, it's like, okay, you're really an adult. Yeah. Because like everybody gives you a pass of calling you a kid when you're in your 20s, but now it's like, okay, and then
you don't get that pass once you're in your 30s.
No, and it's almost mind blowing to think that the next milestone for me is 40.
Yeah,
that's the scary one for most people.
Yeah, it is. It is. And likewise, I'm 31, so I'll be 32 in a few months.
And everything's contextual based. Like, people thinking you're young. But I feel like 40 is the one point where no one considers you young anymore.
Yeah.
Like, you're younger than them, but no one's going to say, oh, that young guy, once you're in your 40s.
Once you're in your 40s, which I want to be that young guy. So, like, you can confuse me for my 30s until I'm dead.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to be that old guy.
Well, I shaved the other day, and someone said that they weren't a fan of it because, like, you look so much younger when you shave. And I'm like, well, that's
check. I'm going to shave every day.
I don't care if you hate it, because I'm doing that every single day. Yeah. That's what I want. I would like to look younger. That would be fantastic.
So got any interesting plans for the day?
No, just like I alluded to earlier, I got two trainings that I got to hit after this. Then I'm going to go buy some liver and run that home real quick. Then I'm going to go to get a chiropractic adjustment, potentially do a little bit of filming. So just basic duties that I need to get done, the usual grocery shopping in a sense.
Yeah. Tell me you have a little bit of time allotted at noon.
There will be. So I do not have the time. However, I do have a phone that will be playing that. So for anybody who doesn't know that reference, it's Justin's
It is
referencing the game, the Ohio State Michigan game, which living in the Midwest or Northeast, whatever you consider this area.
Yes.
I know it's considered Midwest, but it doesn't really feel like Midwest.
It's like the Northeast.
That's the game takes on much more meaning. And I feel like with the way Ohio State's been lately, because it used to be, not that Ohio State was ever bad, obviously, but it used to be the opposite, where Michigan was the evil empire that everybody hated. Well, over the past probably 15 years, Ohio State has taken a far leap to the point where they own the rivalry right now. And it's almost like everybody's rooting against Ohio State now.
I know.
So not just Michigan fans, but everybody. And that ebbs and flows with success.
And let's preface this with, I'm an Ohio State fan.
And I'm a Michigan fan.
And we're like best friends.
Yeah.
Which is weird.
And then like you look at like USC, for example, who USC for the longest time, like when Pete Carroll was there with like Reggie Bush, like they were hated because they were good.
Yeah.
Now, no one really hates USC because they're not winning as much. So it kind of ebbs and flows, but it's unique to see because Michigan is always like, Michigan's like Duke basketball or like the Yankees or the Patriots, where everybody just hates them because that's who they hate because they win and they're good. Well, it's interesting. Not that, I mean, Michigan's a top 5 team in the country, so it's not like Michigan's bad, but Ohio State has been dominant in that series and dominant overall, where Ohio State's one of the top 4 teams in the country every year.
Right.
So it's just funny to see everybody kind of like rooting for Michigan now.
Yeah.
Even people who don't like Michigan normally are like, oh, I hope they get Ohio State today. So should be a fun game. I made a prediction the other day. I said that it was going to be 42-21 Buckeyes. So I think that their offense is too high powered. I think that Michigan has a chance to slow their offense down just from an offensive perspective from Michigan. They run the ball a lot. So they take time clock. You have 2 ways to beat Ohio State. Either you got to score 60, which isn't going to happen, especially for Michigan's offense, not designed for that, or you have to keep their offense off the field because Ohio State is going to score points, and they're going to score a lot of them. And you saw against Michigan State previously, they couldn't keep Ohio State off the field, so Ohio State just kept pouring on. Michigan does a very good job of sustaining drives and taking time off the clock. Harbaugh wants to run the football, so I think that the best thing they're going to do is make this a short game. Keep the clock running, keep it ticking, because the longer this game lasts, the more firepower Ohio State is going to pull away. So
I get Olave in the flat and them guys running,
which is crazy because you could even make an argument that he's their 3rd best receiver right now.
I know.
Which coming into the season, everybody says this is the best receiver in the country, and you could say from a performance perspective, he might be the 3rd best right now. So
it's going to be interesting for sure.
Yep. Should be fun. So I will, like I said, I will be moving and grooving around that time, but I'll have playing on my phone, so we won't miss it down. Well, man, I think that pretty much wraps it up for this week.
Yeah, it's good. It was a good episode, and go Buckeyes.
There we go. So with that, we have come to the end of another episode of the Chasing Dreams podcast with Charlie and Justin. This has been episode 106. We appreciate your listenership, and we look forward to hearing back from you guys next week.
Unbreakable, unstoppable, I'm pushed to the edge.